If your church calendar is full, but something still feels a little stuck, this conversation is for you. Because most churches, they don't drift off mission overnight, right? They drift slowly. And your church calendar could be part of the culprit. It's just one meeting at a time, right? One well-intentioned decision at a time. I have watched it more times than I can count. A staff meeting turns into a calendar meeting. A vision conversation turns into a event discussion. A discipleship conversation becomes a programming discussion. And then before long, the calendar is just completely full. And unfortunately, all the people God has entrusted to you are kind of in the same place spiritually. What's tricky is that none of this feels wrong for sure in the moment, right? Everyone is working hard. Everyone's trying to be faithful. Everyone's trying to serve people well. But kind of here's the deeper issue, right? The center, right? Your center, your church's center has quietly shifted. There's one question that actually determines the effectiveness of almost everything in your church. And whether you ask it intentionally or not, here's the question, right? Who is this actually for? Not will people like it? Not did it work last year or last time? Not can we staff it? But who is this designed for? Who is this designed to disciple? And here's the problem. Most churches don't start with that question. They start with what they're going to do or what they're already doing, not who they're trying to do it for, not who they're trying to develop or disciple. And that's just how discipleship slowly becomes, and I'm going to introduce a word, church-centric or program-centric instead of disciple-centric. Have you ever heard of centricity before? It's primarily a business term, but companies or organizations that are company-centric design everything around themselves. But the best companies are customer-centric. They design everything around the customer, you. And this is true for churches. The best churches are not church-centric. And before you say, well, what about Jesus-centric? I get it, okay? But our hope for people is to grow in their relationship with Jesus, right? To meet him and grow closer to him. So we're not taking Jesus out of this. In fact, by putting the person in front of us at the center of our church, we're actually putting Jesus front and center. So every church, right, yours included, has a center, has a center. And some churches are church-centric. I want to say a lot of churches are church-centric. The unspoken goal becomes sustaining the institution, right? And this may be hard to think about, but it could be you, right? Attendance and budgets and buildings and capacity are the things that shape the decisions that you make. Okay, other churches are more program-centric. If people are showing up, the assumption is that growth must be happening, right? But neither of those approaches, they're not evil, right? And they're, by the way, incredibly common. But neither of those approaches consistently produces mature and multiplying disciples. The healthiest churches that I've ever seen, the healthiest churches that I've been a part of, the healthiest churches that I'm coaching right now, that are working with me, the healthiest churches are disciple-centric churches. Okay, they don't start with the calendar. They start with people. Like they ask where people actually are spiritually. They ask what people need now, not eventually, right? They ask what is the most intentional next step that will help this individual in front of me move forward spiritually. This is where really, really good church leadership pressure, it's where that pressure starts to lift. This is what great leaders think about being person-centric, around being disciple-centric. Because when the calendar is at the center, think about it. Your strategy defaults to maintenance. When programs are at the center, your strategy kind of just prioritizes participation. But when the person is at the center, strategy focuses on movement. And this is really important because discipleship is nothing other than a journey. It's about movement. It's about incremental steps forward in the direction of their Heavenly Father. So this kind of shift in centricity changes how you do everything. It changes how you plan a sermon series. It changes how you evaluate ministry. It changes how you measure success. Like instead of asking, what are we offering, right? You start asking, who are we helping grow? And what's the right next step for them right now? It helps you evaluate your entire ministry set. Are we offering things for all the kinds of people that are in our church right now? I mean, these kinds of questions really aligns directly with intentional discipleship and the idea of the first right of the 5 rights, the right people. And if we can get the right people right, it helps us get the end right as well, which is the right next step. So think about it this way. Not everyone in your church needs everything, right? But everyone does need one thing. They need clarity. They need clarity. Like I've worked with churches that run excellent programs that are very well attended and well taught, and people are well loved. And on paper, everything looks successful because the numbers look successful. But after years of activity, right, leaders started noticing something that was a little unsettling, right? Few people were actually taking responsibility for their faith. I mean, what a lot of these churches begin to see over time is that mature believers, they're not multiplying, that new believers aren't really lasting. And it wasn't that anything was broken, certainly not on purpose. But the people, and nobody was even resistant to anything that was happening. But the design of the ministry, the model, it was just misaligned. It was designed around the wrong things. So let me give you like some reframing thinking that may bring some clarity to you in this conversation. When you think about your church and you think about your programs are critical. We need programs, but programs are tools. And disciples are the outcome. That's the goal, right? Programs and ministries and church services, these are all just tools, like your building. It's just a tool. These are all tools that we have in our tool belt. But our goal isn't to collect tools or even to organize the tools. Our goal is to use the right tools to build disciples, to grow the faith of the people in our church. And so when we can keep that order straight, I mean, in a very good way, church leadership gets easier, it gets lighter because we have clarity on what we're trying to do. In fact, you stop feeling the pressure to do more and you give yourself and your team permission to just do the things that matter the most. So let me give you like a very simple, practical action that you can take this week, okay? Maybe you have a planning meeting coming up. This would be perfect. So before your next planning meeting, I would just love for you to write this one question at the top of your agenda. You ready? Here's the question. Who is this for? And how does it help them grow? That's it. Who is this for? And how does it help them grow? If you consistently ask that question, your ministry model, your strategy will slowly but surely realign around intentional movement instead of just a whole bunch of activity. And listen, that's how churches grow disciples. And that's how pastors can lead with more clarity, confidence, and peace.